We're live. Good evening, everybody. It's 5 o'clock. Thanks for staying tuned in. I'm the zoning administrator today for a special zoning administrator meeting. There are no meetings to approve this meeting. Now we are taking public comments on item 3, non-agenda matters. This is the time when any person may address matters not listed on this agenda, but which are within the subject matter jurisdiction of this committee. If you're attending in person and wish to make a comment, please raise your hand. Seeing none, I will close the public comment. Now I'll read the statement of purpose. The zoning administrator is appointed by the Planning and Economic Development Director and has the responsibility and authority to conduct public meetings and hearings and to act on applications for minor or reduced review authority projects or amendments. A determination or decision by the zoning administrator may be appealed to the Design Review Board, Cultural Heritage Board, Planning Commission, or City Council as applicable to the decision. All actions taken by the zoning administrator may be appealed within 10 calendar days. If the final day of the appeal period falls on a non-business day, the appeal period will be extended to the next business day. There are no consent items, so we will move on to the first scheduled item, which is item 6.1, public meeting minor design review for Montecito Boulevard. That's not it. Sorry, it is the Lance Drive Housing Development. And planner Connor McKay will be presenting.
Thank you, Zoning Administrator Cumians. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. As was mentioned, this is the Lance Drive Housing Development located at 0, 1601, 1680, 1696, and 1705 Lance Drive. This is a design review application. So this project, the design review for this project includes the review of the development of 672 apartment units across 26 apartment buildings and associated on-site amenities. The project also includes a 4,800 square foot retail space and community garden. So pursuant to the zoning section 2016-070, multifamily residential developments, which this project is proposing, that are located within a priority development area are delegated to the zoning administrator through the minor design review process, provided the project receives concept design review by the design review board. So this project did receive concept design review by the design review board, as I will detail in the project history slide, and we also have board member Weigel here on behalf of the design review board. Summarizing the design review board comments, really small, a lot of words. These comments are included as attachment 7 in the meeting packet for this item this evening, and the applicant is going to discuss their consideration and incorporation of these comments into the final design that is part of the packet today. So a bit of history on the project. In July of 2012, the City Council certified an environmental impact report for the North Santa Rosa Station Area Specific Plan and adopted pre-zoning for the project site. The project first had its neighborhood meeting in August of 2022. After some back and forth and changes with the applicant team, their applications were submitted, formal applications were submitted in April of 2024, but as I mentioned, this project received concept design review by the design review board prior to that on January 25th, 2024. In August of 2024, the Sonoma County Local Agency Formation Commission, or LAFCO, approved the annexation. So this project site is now included in the City of Santa Rosa jurisdiction. And then last month, November 14th, 2024, the Planning Commission approved a tentative map and conditional use permit for the small lot subdivision, which is phase 2 of the proposed project. Here we have the project location. As you can see, the project is located along Burnville Road and Lance Drive. The project is located within close proximity to the North Santa Rosa Smart Station to the southeast. Northwest Community Park is located to the west. Comstock Middle School is located to the northwest. There's some existing medium density residential to the east, and there's single family residential to the north and across Burnville Road to the south. Here we have the general plan land use designation and zoning districts for the project site. Overall, the project is consistent with applicable density and general plan policies as noted in attachment 14, which is the Planning Commission staff report that was presented to the Planning Commission on November 14th, as mentioned. You'll note that the zoning districts are R318 and R330, which implement the general plan land use designations of medium and medium high residential. And then finally, you'll see at the corner of Lance and Guerneville, there is a parcel that is designated for retail business services by the general plan land use by the general plan and neighborhood commercial. And then all three of those zoning districts, you'll see that suffix of SA, which indicates this project is within the North Santa Rosa Station Area Specific Plan. Some more details about that specific plan. So this was a specific plan adopted in September of 2012. Its primary objective is to support future rail transit by increasing the number of residents and employees within walking distance of the smart station, by improving pedestrian, bicycle, auto, and transit connections, increasing residential density, promoting economic development, and enhancing aesthetics and quality of life. The proposed project implements and is consistent with the North Station Area Specific Plan as noted in the resolution and the attachment 14 Planning Commission staff report. The project also includes a community garden, as is required and envisioned by the specific plan. The applicant will share more details about that component of this project in their presentation. Here we have some internal site perspectives of exterior renderings. I'm not going to go into really any detail here because I'm not an architect and the project applicant's architect is here to discuss these more technically than I am capable of. I'll bring your attention to the top left rendering is a pool building and amenity building that is also an interior perspective from the kind of pool area. And then on the bottom is a perspective from the intersection of Lance Drive and Guerneville Road. Just that retail component that I mentioned. Here we have a fence plan, also kind of small and hard to read, but this slide shows the types of fences that are proposed both on the perimeter of the project site and on the inside that enclose outdoor spaces, and also defining the boundary between the west of the project site, which is, as I mentioned, the Northwest Community Park and Comstock Middle School. There is a pedestrian connection along Lance if you just kind of follow the Lance right of way through the project all the way to the west. That will allow for easy accessible connection of pedestrians to those amenities, off-site amenities. And then also I'll note here that the project's access points are along Iroquois, which is the street to the northeast of the project site, Lance Drive, as I mentioned, and then also the project includes proposed ingress and egress on the south side of the project boundary on the Guerneville Road frontage. Here we have all the public comments that have been received about this project. All of the public correspondence has been included as attachment 6. They're also summarized in the staff report that was presented at the November 14th Planning Commission hearing. And I'll also mention here that this afternoon I received a phone call from a resident of the Zinfandel Apartments, which is an affordable senior housing community, who was excited to hear about new apartments being built nearby and commented how they believe that this is a good location for this type of project. So this project has been reviewed in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. As I mentioned, the North Station Specific Plan Environmental Impact Report was certified by the City Council in 2012. This project is within the scope of that specific plan EIR pursuant to CEQA section 15168. Project is statutorily exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15182, Government Code 65457, because it is a residential project that is consistent with the specific plan, as I mentioned. This determination is supported by an environmental checklist prepared by ICF in accordance with CEQA, and is supported by various technical studies, including air quality, cultural resources, and traffic impact. Then I'll go into findings. Staff's analysis supports the required findings to approve design review. The project includes a design and layout that is a superior quality that underwent concept design review at the Design Review Board and was reviewed by city departments and divisions. The project would support the goals of the North Station Area Specific Plan by supporting rail infrastructure and by increasing the number of Santa Rosa residents in close proximity to the North Santa Rosa Smart Station. The project also includes a Class 1 bike path along the Gurnville Road frontage, which further enhances the bicycle and pedestrian experience on that project frontage. The project would also integrate existing heritage trees into shared amenity areas, which include pool, dog park, secure bicycle storage, and community garden. The layout includes ingress and egress on Gurnville Road, as I mentioned, to reduce the burden on the intersection of Gurnville and Lance Drive. The architectural details include a variety of colors, materials, and features that break up the massing of each structure. Additionally, most of the existing single-family residential development to the north would be adjacent to the approved small lot subdivision approved by the Planning Commission as phase 2 of the project, as opposed to the multifamily residential development that is subject to this design review application. Finally, the project would provide a desirable living environment for future residents due to its location and proximity to daily needs, including a middle school, public park, Cottingtown Mall, and the North Santa Rosa Smart Station, which would facilitate a walkable environment and promotes the goals of the North Station Area Specific Plan. So with that, it is recommended by the Planning and Economic Development Department, the Zoning Administrator grant design review for the Lance Drive housing development located at 0, 1601, 1680, 1696, and 1705 Lance Drive. Here is my contact, and then I'm available for any questions if the zoning administrator has any for me. If not, the applicant has a presentation today as well.
Traffic, there's a representative from the traffic group here as well.
Great, thank you. Yes, we have Farron Pierce on the line as well, who prepared the traffic impact study.
I think I'm going to reserve my questions until after your presentation.
Great, I will bring that up. I have to change my window. Okay.
So, good evening, Sean Murphy, Pacific Development Project sponsor. Really pleased to present this project to the zoning administrator this evening. This is a culmination of over 2 years of work for this really important priority development site that is a TOD site in walking distance to Smart Station. And for what you'll see tonight, and I'm going to turn it over to Ian and Phil for architecture and landscape here in a minute to walk you through the development of this project. And it's a culmination of really both neighborhood feedback, clearly working with Connor and his team for 2 years, and also the design review board from January 25th earlier this year. So actually, some of the renderings that Connor did capture in his staff presentation, just be mindful, those are the ones, Drew, that you saw back in January. What you'll see today is the development of this project and responding to all of those concerns, comments, and it really has generated the development of the project. It's a large project. You know, there's 3 total phases, over 770 units. It's an important mix. Clearly, what's in front of design review today is the multifamily components, which are components phase 1 and phase 3. We're really excited to be able to build this diverse housing type of both multifamily for rent as well as small lot attached, which is phase 2 that Connor spoke of, for sale, and add these important market rate and affordable units to the stock of Santa Rosa. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ian to walk through the architecture side of it.
Yep. Happy to see everyone tonight. Thank you for letting us present for you. My name is Ian Murphy, no relation. PDE Architecture, I'm the principal at PDE Architecture. Me and Phil are going to show you a little bit about the design as it's developed. We've gotten a lot of really constructive feedback, as Sean said, and we're really happy with where we've ended up as of today. So the text is not showing up super great here, but this is another view similar to what Connor was just presenting, showing kind of the architectural relationship of the site. As I'm sure you're all aware, the site's situated at the intersection of Lance Drive and Guerneville Road, and it's conveniently located about 0.2 miles from the Santa Rosa North Smart Station and about 0.5 miles from the Cottington Shopping Center and Whole Foods, which makes it an ideal location for a residential project of this size and scale. To the west of the site is the Hillary Comstock Middle School, and to the north are the residential components that Connor presented earlier. I will point out that all along Lance Drive, we'll see it in future slides a little bit better, but there's a class 1 bike path that's being added. There's currently no street improvements on that part of Guerneville Road, so this would be a huge benefit and a huge added safety factor for pedestrians and bikers. Next. As Sean mentioned, it's a very large project and it's being broken up into 3 phases. Phase 1 is 396 units. And we'll show you some images of that tonight. Phase 2 is the single family lower density component, which is about 98 units. And phase 3, the final phase, is the remaining 276 rental apartments. Slide. We got a lot of comments back in January. This is just a smattering of them on the screen, and we're hoping that we can further address most of them as we go through, both in the presentation and through your questions afterwards. Slide. The project incorporates a number of sustainable measures in keeping the California Green Building Code, Santa Rosa Climate Action Plan, and best practices for mixed-use multifamily residential projects of this type. Most importantly, the project adds a large quantity of transit-oriented housing that will reduce the trips and residents of Santa Rosa's dependence on cars and greatly help to reduce potential carbon footprint of a project of this type. We're doing a lot of things, but that's kind of the massive takeaway. The project will utilize sustainable strategies, including low-flow plumbing fixtures, a large quantity of PV panels, photovoltaic panels. That'll be an all-electric project, not reliant on gas. It's going to use energy-efficient appliances. It's going to have low and no VOC materials throughout the entirety of the project. There's going to be a low water use planting program that Phil can talk about in a little bit more detail. The irrigation will meet WELO standards, which I believe Phil helped to draft the language for. So we're very benefit much from his guidance here. We're going to be retaining these existing heritage trees, which are sort of a project-specific sustainable measure that we're really excited about. What we think will be a hallmark of the project. And there'll be a community garden that was talked about at some length in January that we'll also talk about more. Next slide. So here's an illustrative site plan depicting the integrated nature of the new planting and open space. The residential portion of the project is oriented around those existing beautiful heritage oak trees that are in the center where you might see the pool in this distance. There are 2 to 3 large oak trees that'll be saved and be viewable from Guerneville as sort of a public hallmark for the site. At the right side of phase 1, the project includes a retail component that holds the corner with a public space that's connected to the new bike and walking path and all the improvements on Guerneville. So I think we had come previously with sort of an open space that turned its back on the corner and the public realm a little bit. And what we're showing today through the renderings, through the site plan, opens it up and allows people to kind of come, and it's sort of a front porch to the project. I think it's much more successful and a direct outcome of comments we got here. Adjacent to the new retail building is the new community garden, and we're going to talk about that a bit more in a bit. Both of these street-facing public improvements beautify the existing streetscape, maximize visual and physical connections within the site as intended by the site-specific plan. The remainder of the site uses the orientation of the residential buildings to screen the majority of the on-grade parking, whereas the retail is our front porch that opens up to the community and provides these connections, and the heritage trees are sort of, we're opening up to show off those in the amenity buildings that are glassy and inviting and interesting. The rest of the site uses the residential buildings to kind of hide the parking, which I think was a comment that we received previously. Through discussion with Comstock Middle School, the project has integrated a pedestrian entry gate and gate at the western border. So sort of where Lance Drive would terminate if it continued all the way to the school. There'll be a gate that we heard from the school to allow for safe let out of teachers, students, and staff in that area. Overall, the site integrates numerous green outdoor open areas with playground, seating areas, and barbecues, as well as landscape paths to create a more walkable, pedestrian-friendly neighborhood. Open green areas are also located where possible adjacent to the existing single-family home properties to provide a more gracious transition to the higher density portions of the project. I will also point out, as mentioned by Connor, that the single-family lots are designed to be 2- and 3-story with all of the 2-story components adjacent to the single-family homes to transition gradually up to the higher density housing. Next slide. This is a view of the proposed new retail building at the corner of Lance and Guerneville, kind of across Guerneville. The project includes an extensive landscape feature that incorporates pedestrian entry to the site and easy access to the retail. So that's that path that you can see those 2 people in the rendering walking towards. To the left of the entry is one of 2 bus stops. They're part of the project going either direction on Guerneville, adding to the transit-oriented nature of the project. The building itself proposes an open and inviting glass facade with warm wood-toned accents. The dual-pitched roof provides the opportunity for a striking extended eave at the most prominent corner, while also having a shared architectural language with the other residential buildings on site that we'll see in a moment. They've all been heavily edited based on your comments. Next slide. Moving down Guerneville, the project opens up to present 2 large heritage trees flanked by our kind of vibrant residential amenity buildings, building on the right and the left here, also with those pitched almost butterfly roofs. Each building uses a large area of glass and wood-toned siding to create an interesting and active public frontage. Our idea here is that you see people using these amenities from the street, and it activates the whole environment and the whole project. At the street, kind of in the foreground here, a class 1 biking and walking path and landscape create a safe pedestrian-oriented environment. As I said earlier, that doesn't currently exist if you've been to the site right now. Next slide. This is a view of one of those amenity buildings that we just saw from the other side, as if you had just entered on the first vehicular entrance off of Lance. So this is a little bit closer view of some of the materials, the metal siding and roofing and the wood tone siding and the pitched roofs to give kind of an idea of the quality of the architecture as we've adapted it now. So we feel like we have a more cohesive architecture. And as we're going to see in the next slide, this is further down Guerneville, and this is part of the phase 1 residential. We received input at this same group in January that the phase 3 was a little bit more successful, and there was a bit of monotony in the gabled roofs that were previously being proposed that were shown in the image that was in Connor's presentation. And so we leaned into doing something that had more of a relationship to phase 3 and had single pitched angle parapet elements that spoke to the redesign of the community buildings and the retail building. We feel like it's much more cohesive. We also use this opportunity to add a little bit more articulation and just generally more interesting roof line. And next slide. And here's a picture of phase 3, just to show the relationship between how they're different, slightly different use of color, slightly different use of some of the same material palette, slightly different programming to the roof pitches and how they change, but the same basic language. We heard about enclosing some of the ground floor stoop areas. That's been added to the design at this point. This is the last slide before I hand it over to Phil, but I say that we are really excited about all of the green space that kind of ties these buildings together, because our vision is that this is more of a walkable community and not just parking lot residential buildings in it. And with that, I'd like to hand it to Phil Anderson, landscape architect, to say a couple words.
Does the cursor work on that?
He's driving.
Oh, yeah.
You're driving the bus?
Yeah, I can curse around.
Okay, great. Well, let's just start to stay here. So I'd like to go from right to left, and let's start up in the corner there where it says retail. So I think one of the important aspects of this project is, as Ian mentioned, is the front porch of the project. And what we're really looking at is usable outdoor space. That there's a lot of noise going on at this intersection of Guerneville and Lance. What we want to do is there's actually a wall that we built up, and we're going to mount the earth up to it. And as people are sitting there, it's not going to protect you totally, but at least it gives you a sense of enclosure that you're not totally exposed to the intersection, right? I think that's important for that space to be successful. There's access off of Guerneville. There are two. There's actually the main entrance. It comes off just beyond the intersection of Lance Drive that goes into the plaza area. And there's also another smaller walkway out to Lance. So there are two connections from one from Guerneville, one from Lance, to access to property area, the front porch, so to say, the patio. Just above the retail, the word retail, that's where the community garden is located. It's one of the larger open spaces in the property. There are 10 smaller 5x6 boxes, and there are 10 larger 5x10 boxes. So there's 20 total. It's all ADA accessible for people to get onto the project. We need to go back one. It's all ADA accessible. There will be a fence around the vegetable garden. That'll be determining what the fencing material will be. So that's still a work in progress. But really, this is the first piece of architecture, the first piece of landscape that you see when you come to the project. Okay? There'll be bike racks there because we have the bus stop. And there'll be people on the class 1, riders, I should say, on the class 1 bike trail that ride off of Guerneville Road. We'll have bike racks. We do want them to come in too. If there's a coffee shop, for example, or a small deli or something like that, sandwich shop. It's a place where tables and chairs can be set. And now we get pedestrians and bicyclists into the space. Okay? And we talked about the vegetable garden, what's happening there. If we cross over towards the leasing office where it says leasing, I should potentially just point that out. There you go. Thank you. There's a patio that's happening behind that too. That's if when people come to this apartment development, they'll be able to look through the building and see the pool area. And there's 3 existing oak trees, valley oaks. We're retaining them. Okay? It's an outdoor space. Let's say if people are bringing their laptops to work at home, it's very popular right now. I wish I could adapt to that, but I still work from the office. But nonetheless, that's what that space is for. Okay? And just to bring people out to see the space, because beyond the oak trees is the rec building. Right? Well, let's talk about the oak trees for a second. The largest one that's just to the right of the pool, that area will sort of be left fallow. Okay? We don't want to have a lot of activity there. There are 2 smaller oak trees that parallel Guerneville Road. There we're proposing to do a dog park. Okay? Less impact. That'll be fenced off as well. But there's a connection from the leasing office all the way across to the fitness center and the activity room, and then that then connects to the pool. So there's a lot of connectivity happening there. You have the pool, the dog park, the leasing center, and the exercise area. So that's sort of the hub and the heart of the project. There's also a small children's play area just to the left of the fitness building, and that then connects out between the buildings. Can't see that, I think it's 4 and 5. That will connect up the rest of the building. This is phase one. Of course, phase 2 and 3 we've talked about, but this is phase 1. This is the beginning. The class 1 bike trail along Guerneville Road, again, that was been discussed extensively, and that's sort of the landscape concept. And then I will say that from the landscape, all the shrubs we're using are low water use. Okay? The trees, 70% of our trees are low water use. We have a few moderate water uses. All of the irrigation will be drip irrigation, but it will be a emitter type that's basically to the MWELO standards, which is the Model Water Use Landscape Ordinance. I was in the beginning of that. I wrote that ordinance working with the home builders when we started that way back in the day, a long time ago. So I'm pretty familiar with it. We intend to do that here. Smart controllers, master valves. That's about the level of detail I get into there. It's very complex, but that's what we intend to use here. And basically, it's to save water. Okay? A few retention basins here. Of course, we'll enhance those. That'll be part of the project. But in essence, we do want this to be the heart of the development. The landscape ties it all together with the architecture. Last slide, I guess.
And that's a great image of what I was just describing in terms of how the amenity buildings meet the pool, meet the residential building.
Right, there'll be a spa there as well. But you see the sightline coming from the exercise building. That's important to connect those two together visually. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. And now, I'd like to hear from design review board member Michael, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Could you speak up a little bit, please? Sorry. I'd like to hear from a design review board member, Mr. Weigel.
So, so we reviewed this project back in January of this year. And I just pulled up the comments that it looks like we made here. Let's see here. I'm assuming a traffic study got done. Cool. I'm just going through this list here to make sure. Okay. That's cool. We thought. Okay, so yeah, I think. I mean, just looking at this and going through the list of comments that we had, I think that that the design team and the applicant have really improved the project. I mean, I think one of the largest things that concerned DRB at the time was, Guerneville Road is kind of a super highway right now. And so with the inclusion of this project right there, kind of as you're coming out of Cottingtown and then out, towards the western part of the city, I think we were concerned with how this project could be viewed and could it, as the applicant team said, provide a front porch or a connection there. And so I think really the change of that corner is a huge improvement. And I like the idea of the little sound wall and kind of humping it down. So it's both exposed and open visually from a vehicular, kind of perspective, but also intimate for the pedestrian kind of bike experience. So I think that's really, it's a huge improvement. The redesign of that retail building, it's a cool modern building. They'll probably not have trouble finding a tenant. It seems right sized for that little spot. It's kind of interesting. You had this kind of weird little knuckle there that was kind of retail and business services. So it's like, how do you deal with that from a zoning perspective? I think you've done that very eloquently as it connects to the rest of the project. I really like the redesign of phase 1. Like you said, I think it's no longer a dissimilar architectural language. They're now speaking to one another. And I think what's really interesting about the phase 1 elevation is not only did you change the roof line,
but you also managed to introduce more breakup of the massing through the way that you have opposing shed roofs, but then also the pushed in areas that are a lighter color. So it doesn't feel as kind of domineering, I think, as it kind of did before when it was kind of gable, 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 gable. And so that it actually brings the scale of the building down. So you've got a more pedestrian friendly connection there, which huge improvement. Let's see what else here. Revise community garden, which you did. Maximize open space, which you did.
Would it help if Connor had this slide?
No, I'm just looking at the little list here. I'm just went through it all. But yeah, I think it's a huge improvement. I think this is a great example of, the concept design review process. It's a really strong applicant team that brought a strong project, and through the commentary from design review board, we actually have a much stronger project as a result. And I think that's kind of why the process exists. And it's nice now that they can get their entitlement today, potentially, and move forward. I'm assuming you guys are getting ready to submit permits and all that good stuff, or maybe you already did and you're just chomping at the bit. But yeah, I think it's a huge improvement on the project. I also really like the way that you're screening and breaking up different parts of the project, particularly the small lot subdivision, which isn't part of our purview, but being respectful of the adjacent development in both directions, not only with the multifamily, but also the small lot, how that interconnects. Because I think, three-story small lot subdivision is kind of actually the flavor of the week right now. Garages down below with like some public space, and then the living spaces on the kind of the second floor and the third floor, because it allows you to get kind of more density, which I think is great because now you've introduced kind of a missing middle housing option, which we don't really have a whole lot of here. That kind of townhome detached, kind of almost townhomey, but not because they're not attached. They'll be detached. But so overall, I think it's a great project. And thank you for listening. And like I said, I think it's a much better project than it was. And I like the overall color palette and material selection too. I think there's enough diversity from kind of front to back now that it's, it speaks to one another, but it's also diverse and unique. And that way each piece can kind of stand on its own. We had a project, I think about 6-9 months ago, that was an exact copy of another project in town. And they didn't even bother to like change the color. And that was super frustrating for us because we're like, wait, you just put this in one part of town and it's not the same. The context is different. So I think you're respecting the context of this very large site, and the connectivity to the surrounding school, park, housing, et cetera. And then also the crazy highway drive that is Verneville. I'm assuming, is a light going in as part of this at Lance?
So there is a light there. The good news is that this project went through the LAFCO process.
Oh, right.
I'd say that Guerneville has been a highway speed calming now that it really has been annexed into the city of Santa Rosa. Now working with engineering and public works, there's really going to be traffic calming and enforcement.
Yeah.
Because this has been in every way a county island.
Yeah.
And the public benefits that this project brings forth with the class 1 utilities that we're going to be bringing down all the way down Guerneville, you're going to see a fresh new Guerneville road for this frontage. So it's going to really help.
Yeah, I think it's going to be nice. Yeah. So I think it's a big benefit. So anything else, Kristen, from our perspective? Yeah, I think if the rest of the board were here, they have kind of the same comments as me. I think they'd be really excited about all the changes. So thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Weigel. Now I'm going to take public comments from members of the public.
If you're attending in person, would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. All right. I can just start from the left and go on to the right. One moment. Share my screen.
Oh, I'm sorry I was late. I had trouble finding the place. And I'm really sorry I missed the comments because now I don't know what was said. But I was a little concerned when I went to the last hearing about the accessibility of the entrance there by the retail area and how that's going to impact the traffic flow on Lance. I live in Westbury, so of course, you know, you're going to be my neighbors. And so I just kind of wondered what I missed, if anything, about that. I know there was some kind of a traffic study. I'm kind of looking over some links that Connor sent me. Sorry if I missed things. Maybe if someone could just kind of reiterate anything around that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
See comments and we'll show you.
Beautiful concept, I have to admit, and I like the changes. But I can't say that I've lived in the area. I live over on Pawnee Street, 4 blocks north. And I'm just gonna say that a little retaining wall is not gonna keep the noise from Guerneville Road away from whoever's on that side of the project. Only because I can hear them from Pawnee Street. So just saying. Also want to say that I think it's great that you are definitely trying to keep the heritage oak trees. I'm allergic to oak trees, but they're beautiful and majestic. So I appreciate that as well. Appreciate the walkable community. It's a great concept, like I said. I just feel that because I live in that community, the reality is that there's a big chance that it will not meet the reality, meaning people who live there. These days, you have 2 working parents, they're trying to get their children in and out of school, back home, dinner on the table, homework, and maybe during the summer when the kids are out of school, we'll see a little bit of that community. But otherwise, I don't feel it's going to be a true reality. And I say that sadly. It's just the days that we live in. That's all. It's true life. But again, I like the concept. But I will end with this. I really feel as if even with the traffic operations analysis, they're not true to life. Like I said, I've lived there for 5 years. They are not true to life, unfortunately. And it's going to be inevitable. It's going to be literally fated that traffic congestion and I'm just thinking 1,500, almost 1,500 parking spots. Yeah, I just can't see it. I think of even watching a child, you know, with a model of this concept and all those cars there and them trying to get through. Did we say we did open up a new space now besides Iroquois and Lance and Guerneville coming out? Is there another exit and entrance?
There's one exit. Or do you want me to wait?
We can answer.
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah, we can answer that.
Yeah.
There's one vehicular entrance or exit both on Guerneville. There's a few on Lance and one.
We can answer that after we.
After.
Comments.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, Debbie. Okay. But I still feel that's it.
Thank you.
Sir in the hat.
Yeah, I'm Steve McGarry. I'm Michelle's husband. We live in the same place. We've resided on Pawnee Street for a number of years. And I do appreciate the view of all the work that you guys have done. I do think it's an awesome challenge that you've tried to address all these different things and you're trying to work towards transit hospitality. And it's all really good stuff. The difficulty I have is in trusting the traffic studies because whatever study you've got, you're not I don't imagine that you guys are projecting the volume of vehicles that are already present. You know, the only reason that Lance works right now is because there is no project there. There is no Lance project. I believe that trying to get that type of population fit into this small area. I mean, with the number of units you've got projected, it is a small area. And so I see Lance becoming impassable, especially in an emergency situation. So right now it works, but once you're basically blocking the artery, I think, and all I saw in the presentation and in what I could find online is one exit on Guerneville, coming directly from the center of the unit or the complex to Guerneville. And I saw that was a one-way exit. And to me, that's counterproductive. You know, you may, you know, well, where's the entrance? Well, it's all the way around the other side of the complex, if I have that right. So again, I think emergency egress is something that needs to be considered. And I don't wish for all this work to just go away because of my concerns, but I do believe that it's going to be tough to sell the person who's living there 5 years from now that this was ever a good idea, because I think the traffic is going to be horrendous. And as far as the retail is concerned, I do appreciate the union of residential with retail, you know, to allow people to not have to get in their cars and go anywhere. I just haven't seen it that successful in the city of Santa Rosa. I've seen a lot of different mixed use places and they sit empty. Hopefully not in this case. That's it.
Thank you.
I'd like to speak last, please.
I'm Tony Ryback. I've lived at Westbury condos for 30 years. I'm seeing a lot more traffic on Guerneville Road. Also, when the two trains go through around the same time, it really backs up. So I'm looking that, and also from Lance on Guerneville Road to Dutton, you're going to have to put another turn lane in to turn right on Dutton to feed out all this traffic. And especially now, if we have traffic coming from the school going through here too, that's going to be another traffic jam problem.
Okay, go ahead.
My name is Galina Seabrook. I also live at Westbury complex for 23 years now. I live on the side of Lance, and I daily make several times left turn from Westbury into Lance in order to get on Guerneville. Even at this point, I have to tell you, in rush hours, it's impossible to get in. It's just impossible because the cars are lined all the way to North Coast. Even at this point. I did not see in the plan, for example, an extra lane for right turn with the new project, where at least some of the traffic that turns right can be eased a little bit. As Tony said, Guerneville is already, with these developments west from us, congested. With the traffic stopped for the trains, it's backs up to traffic lights back. Impossible for us to even green from Lance to get into Guerneville, so I have to go down to El Cerrito. Putting another 1,500 cars at that intersection is absolutely impossible, I think, and all my neighbors think. Even at this point, it's just incredible. Secondly, we heard a lot about vegetation that is low irrigation. How about the water for domestic use? Because currently our water after 5 p.m. barely goes at very low pressure, as everybody starts using water. Is there a plan for extra water supply for this additional limits for domestic purposes? the other thing. Speaking of pedestrians, do you consider that every time pedestrian crosses Gurnville or Lance, they hit the button and the traffic, like for the pedestrian, is another extra 30 seconds? I walk my dogs crossing Gurnville, like every time I go, people from Lance cannot make left turn, and Gurnville from west to east and east to west box have to stop and immediately gets congested. Putting all these pedestrians, have you ever thought about maybe building an overpass? So people don't have to stop the traffic additionally when they walk, if they walk in every 10 minutes, different pedestrian pushing the button. That will be an extra burden on the traffic. Regarding the color palette, I see that in the last 10, 15 years, every architect, every developer uses dark gray everywhere. Don't ask me how many of my coworkers living in Skyhook have commented the new development there on Calistoga Road and how horrendous this apartment complex looks. The dark gray attracts heat and heats the ground around. So I don't know if any of the developers have thought about using light colors just to be able to reflect the light and not additionally warm up the city.
Thank you. For the last, okay, I'll speak. I'm kind of new to the building of Santa Rosa, though my parents did build a house here in 1961. I'm Janice Carmen. I just ran for City Council, District 3. And I'm glad to come here today. I'm glad to see this. I think that visually this is a gorgeous project. I think it looks really fantastic. There's some things that I was writing down in the beginning, and it's the child area close to the fitness center. And I was wondering if somebody could address that after, so that we just know a little bit more about that. My issues are the children, where the children are, the lighting, safety, and crime hardening. So that I know the area very well from relatives having lived over there and revisiting. And it has had its issues. It probably continues to have them, as Santa Rosa has, but I know Santa Rosa is doing much better. So that's what I'm thinking. But also, I have to smile because I went to the Rabbit, I call him Rabbit, Supervisor Rabbit. He and I had gotten into it multiple times about the building in Santa Rosa, that it gets thrown up really quickly and that it almost looks like paper that you could rip off the wall 6 months later. And one of the Cotting family, which is the long ago family that built Montgomery Village, she had written a letter to the letters of the editor. It was very sarcastic. And she said, in no time at all, this will look like a ghetto. And, you know, you can laugh at that, but it's a sad commentary on what can happen. Also, what she is saying about the great buildings being dark and taking the heat. And there's a thing about shadows. When the buildings get too tall, and I'm saying too tall, but I'm just using general language. It's depression. And I know this from Sweden. And I came back from Sweden long ago in the 80s, and I went to the city about that. And shadows are very effective, affecting to people. So I think that the dark gray also adds to the shadow aspect of that kind of sense. So the safety and the lighting, nothing was said here about the lighting, I don't think, but the lighting, I think, is really important, like at night, and families getting in and out of the car and getting in the house and having to go through different places to get to their house. So those are things that concern me. But I think it looks really good. I really do. And I hope it does get built, because it looks like it's going to be the answer to a lot of prayers here. Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Okay. Seeing none, I will close public comments. I heard we have the traffic consultant available. There were a number of traffic questions. I was hoping we could answer those.
Yeah, I've got a list of them, but if, I'm not sure which representative we have.
Ian is here, Ian Barnes.
Mr. Barnes, are you available to answer just any of those things that you probably took down yourself if you need some help to help you out?
Yeah, maybe if I can just kind of start at a high level. Sorry, Ian Barnes, principal engineer with Fair and Peers out of our Petaluma office, so up there in the North Bay. Just kind of starting out here, the city of Santa Rosa has guidelines for the standard preparation of traffic operational analysis. And while my colleagues and I prepared the traffic study for this project per those standard guidelines that the city's had since at least 2019, if I remember correctly, and several editions previous. Our study was also reviewed and approved by the city's traffic engineer, Rob Sprinkle, through a number of series of comments. So in the traffic study, we reviewed a number of intersections. I believe it was 20 intersections in the course of that study, many of which are along Guerneville Road. Some are along Marlowe, some are on West Steele, and we did look at some of the intersections along Iroquois and Lance Drive and the new intersection there along Guerneville Road. We studied those intersections for existing conditions, near-term conditions, so existing plus approved projects, and also far-term cumulative conditions. And the way that we evaluate those intersections are, we look at the operations of those intersections without the effects of the project, and then layer on the project traffic on top of that. When we do that, we get a level of service grade. That's a way of correlating the delay at intersections, the congestion, to a letter grade, A through F. A being the best operations, F being overcapacity operations, and level of service E being at capacity of operations. The city's level of service standard is, generally speaking, one notch above E at level of service D. That means that there is some spare capacity in the intersection to handle fluctuations in demand over the course of the peak hour. That level of service grade is also very important because that goes back to the city's circulation element, goals and policies related to the operations of the roadway system. And so when we look at the traffic analysis using the criteria that the city has set forth, all of our study intersections operate within the city's standards. Now, there can be peaks and valleys of congestion within the peak hour, but at least per the standard practice for traffic studies that the city has prescribed and has been using for some time now, all of the study intersections check out. To another question there, as part of that standard practice, we do actually plug in the number of pedestrians that maybe are holding up traffic or causing the walk sign and the flashed out walk sign to go. So we do cover that as well. But I think kind of the moral of the story here is for this traffic study that we have, had a couple rounds of review with Rob and city staff. We do project operations that do remain within the city standards at our study intersections. I know that there were a few other questions over the course of public comment. So if there's any specific ones that I've missed, I'd be happy to touch on those.
Yeah, if you could summarize the recommendations that the traffic study made. There's some questions about will there be a new stoplight, will there be a new turn lane? So if you could just run through those for us, that would be helpful.
Yeah, so starting with the Guerneville Road project driveway, that is projected to be just a stop sign there. That intersection is a new access point onto Guerneville Road, and we did review it. As for some of the other intersections, I think this is also a very important point about the Guerneville Road corridor itself. The city has actually invested in what's called an adaptive signal system. So as part of that adaptive signal system, the timings of the traffic signals automatically adjust to travel demand volumes. So in the same way that they'd adjust to volumes throughout the course of the day, they'd also adjust to the timings for the project. And so by doing so, it actually minimizes the need for additional turn lanes because the signals will be adjusting automatically without any human input to the changes in traffic volumes over time there. And as part of that here, I am trying to get to the recommendations here. So just bear with me for 1 second. Maybe while I'm pulling that up, maybe I can answer another question.
And you did look at trains impacting the intersections as well, train operations.
We did not. And that's because that is kind of part of the way that we look at the course of the operations is over the course of the entire peak hour of travel. You know, trains will come and go, and volumes will fluctuate at the intersection. But the standard way for traffic engineers to look at the intersection analysis is there over the course of the peak hour.
Anything else?
Sorry here, the report's a little sluggish to load for me here. So, sorry, were there any other?
Would you mind if I ask a tack-on question about the train thing that might help? Okay, so when you talk about the peak hour, right, like a train may only impact the crossing for, I don't know, 5 minutes or something, right? Your peak hour is 60 minutes. So you're looking at that full 60 minutes, whether or not there's a train in that 60 minutes or not, correct? So the peak, right, because you're generating information based on that peak load effectively, right?
That is correct. And the gate down blockages are usually substantially less for passenger trains, at least, less than 5 minutes. To the degree that traffic volume peaking does occur because of gate downs, those are theoretically captured in the analysis because we do apply a peaking factor based on the traffic counts that we do. So I'm going to slightly walk back what I said previously. While we don't directly model the gates going down in our traffic operations model, the effects of the gates going down are captured because they're captured in our traffic count volumes.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. And so just to close the loop there on intersection improvements, it appears, and again, this is in the traffic study, that the study intersections do continue to operate acceptably with respect to the city's general plan level of service standard without the need for further improvements. And that is chiefly due to this adaptive signal system that dynamically controls the capacity of the intersection so that you don't have to go off and go add a bunch of extra lanes at the intersections, which has safety implications and other things. So this is kind of showing the effects of that adaptive signal system.
The main improvements include a stop sign as part of your recommendation.
Yes, so for the project driveways, we are anticipating side street stop control out of the driveways.
Okay. And either could you or Connor explain what a class 1 bike lane is?
You want to take that one, Mr. Barnes?
Sure. So a class 1 bike path is a separated pathway, separated out of the travel way, commonly known as a multi-use path. Some examples of those include, just at a very, very high level from a design perspective, like the Santa Rosa Creek Trail. It's a separated path, typically 10 feet wide, that both bicyclists and pedestrians can use. And unlike a bike lane that is at the same level as the travel way, it's separated. So it generally represents kind of a higher level of design than to accommodate bicycle and pedestrian movements out of the vehicular travel way.
So it's safer for the bicyclists, keeps them away from the vehicles.
Generally speaking, yes.
Class ones that have like.
Yeah.
And then there were questions about emergency vehicle access. I don't know if you could answer or who feels more comfortable answering emergency access in case of fire or
evacuation.
Yeah.
Emergency evacuation.
Oh.
Is there questions on it?
Yeah, there
or-
were questions from the public about, in case of a evacuation, how would that occur? I recall reading there
Being
was
one artery out.
Yeah.
Is that-
Well, now, I mean, ever since 2017, we've really made some major changes. 2017, during the Tubbs fire, we didn't have any zones present. So it was basically dumping the whole city at once, right? Evacuation of the whole city. That causes problems, as everybody knows. Now we've integrated evacuation zones. So Gurnville Road is actually split to where on the north side, we have Northwest 2 evacuation zone. The other side, we have a different evacuation zone. So what we can do is, in the event of a major conflagration, is we can meter the amount of people that are evacuating at once. So the big thing is to know what zone you're living in, right? So you'll get an emergency alert if there is some sort of big incident, and you could be given an order to basically, it could come from shelter in place, it could be to get prepared or to get out, right? So in this way, we're going to limit the amount of people that are evacuating at one time. So there's that. We also have better alerting systems. We have high-low sirens. There's a bunch of things that now we've built into place to help make things evacuate smoother. During the glass fire, we were actually able to evacuate the whole east side of the city within 2.5 hours. So there's just some major changes that have come into place since then. So there'll be a big difference if this unfortunately ever happens again.
Can you pull up the site plan? There was a question about accessibility of the retail.
Yeah.
Just explain how. I guess it would be the applicant's presentation, because the site plan changed slightly, or?
Yeah, I think we pulled the illustrative site plan. Hopefully we can speak to the concern.
Made sense to me, what they did. I'm the subject matter expert.
I'll describe it if you want, and then if I'm not speaking to the heart of the question.
Yeah, just describe, if you could describe how.
Maybe zoom in.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't mind. So the vehicular access to the retail is off of Lance Drive. It's the first vehicular entrance kind of on the top of the page there, to the right of what's listed as building 1. So you would come out of the Lance intersection, pull into the site, and the first portion of parking would be dedicated to people using the retail space. If you're coming by foot, I don't think that was the question, but if you're coming by foot, we saw that rendering, and there's kind of a bigger access right off of Grinville Road now. So kind of a plaza behind the berm.
This is a pure shell. You don't have a planned tenant.
We do not at this
Okay.
time. We want it to be neighborhood serving.
Okay.
Activity to the community garden is super important. So that community garden really becomes an asset for this important hard corner of Kerrville and Lance. But we'll be actively soliciting retail users that are neighborhood serving starting early next year.
Okay. And then my other question was for the residential, or well, actually both residential and retail. For your HVAC units, will they be roof mounted?
They will, yes.
Okay, and will they be screened?
Actually, the parapets that we designed are,
Okay.
yes, correct. Screening those is very important for noise and visual.
Okay, great. And I thought I saw covered parking on the site plan.
There is some amount of carports.
A mix,
Yeah,
okay.
a mix of open and covered.
Is it a flat top for you?
I don't think we fully designed it, but we anticipate it'll be single pitch, in keeping with the language of the other architecture.
Incorporating PV photovoltaic at the
Oh,
same time.
okay. So
It's the center corridor. There's like a center corridor that's got kind of back-to-back parking with covered. Yeah, I saw it on the site
Yeah,
plan.
on the site plan, correct.
Yeah, it's because it's not quite big enough to like put a building in there, obviously. So you guys put a pathway and then the covered parking. Yeah.
Yeah, roughly 35% will be covered parking, hopefully incorporating PV both on the carports as well as on the roof of the buildings, residential buildings.
And Connor, there was a question about domestic water. Water reviewed the project.
They did, and I remember the applicant responding to this question or this concern in the planning commission hearing. The project is actually upsizing water mains and such, so there shouldn't be any water pressure issues on site or off site.
Happy to take that, Connor, if you want.
Yeah.
So yes, as part of the overall kind of public benefits for Guerneville, yes, it's class 1 bike path, but for infrastructure benefits, it's upgrading up to a 12-inch water main that's going all the way down Guerneville to service, yes, the new housing here, but also the existing demand that really needs higher infrastructure.
Okay. So maybe that might improve water pressure.
Absolutely. I mean, working with engineering, yes. I mean, again, it's one of the benefits when you have a project like this that the private
Everyone
sector
benefits,
pays for it, right? Versus this is definitely a street, a city improvement that has been needed, but it's with a project like this that it can be brought forth. So it is the infrastructure improvements that we bring to the
Is
site.
that done before they do this?
There's no back and forth, but the project will include that as part of the improvement plans. And then Connor, the plans, I don't think it's part of your presentation, but the plans included lighting specs.
Yes.
Interesting. There's a question about lighting.
I'm
There's a
just
mixture
talking
of
about the
lighting.
lighting around the buildings, and it's just that it's safe, because I noticed that often the lighting is obscured, or there's a tree in front of it, or, it's not a safe feeling place when you get it together, and then it's too much to try to correct later.
I think I can speak to that at a high level. It's definitely our intent to light the on-grade parking. Everyone who lives there needs to feel safe going home. So there'll be a mix of landscape focused lighting that is more ambiance related, but there'll be quite a bit of pole and bollard lighting that's meant for safety reasons, as well as a mix of on-building lighting. So it's, while the details are still being worked out, it's our intent to light that space.
Thank you.
I recall seeing that.
Yeah, and also as part of their building permit package, they have to meet, there's a city ordinance about spilling light outside of the property, but then there's also city ordinance and building code requirements for the amount of lumens that you have to eliminate for like pedestrian walkways, parking, all that kind of stuff. And so they have, it's like 15 or 20 pages down in the package. There's street lamps and bollards and wall packs and all sorts of stuff in the package currently.
The whole photovoltaic stuff. Yeah.
But I think kind of tied to that question was the integration between child play areas and the fitness center. Are you able to?
I wanted something said about the play area, the size of it, the scope, what is that about? Is it going to be swing sets, or is it going to be a lawn and a tree?
No, I can answer that. So
Okay.
more than likely, it's going to be one or two structures, given the size of the site. That won't be lawn. It'll probably be a place product, for cushioning. And that's really what's going to fit in that space. Swings are sort of not used anymore.
Right.
There's a liability with them. But the play structures are more innovative nowadays. There's a lot of different muscular and physical activities you can do with them. So it is designated next to the fitness center, kind of in eyesight of the pool area as well. And there will be a fence around it, just to isolate the children so they can't run out onto the basically surface area. Okay.
Good, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have one comment that I think hasn't really been addressed yet, about noise, from Guerneville Road. And so my elementary understanding of the building code is that windows for this project will be noise rated in ways that older development doesn't even approach. So I think the potential new residents of this project would enjoy relatively quieter environment than if we had long-standing residential development on the site. And then further, if this is built out, I anticipate that it would further shield noise from both the north and the northeast, just from additional landscaping and development. So I anticipate that the noise environment from experience from Pawnee would be reduced as a result of this project.
Thank you.
One more comment on
Yeah.
that I can think of. There was a question about the island effect of the buildings and
Or the paint.
the paint color. I can say that the percentage of the paint color that's gray compared to white and compared to the amount of roofing is very minimal. And the roofing is of a high reflectance and usually a white color. And so that's California code, but it's also best practice. That's going to mitigate most any heat island effect from the actual structures.
Okay. And the materials you're using, are they a high quality?
Yeah. I mean, there's plaster as a component, but there's also porcelain wood look tile, and there's the amenity buildings and the retail building, kind of a wood look metal siding.
Because there's a concern about durability of exterior materials.
These are the same materials that we would use on any of the highest end residential projects you could see anywhere in Northern California.
Yeah, I would agree with the materiality. I mean, there's no fiber cement siding. It's all stucco, right?
It's a plaster, I think.
Yeah, well, that's stucco, it's plaster.
We do, Drew, we do incorporate some Lux panel, so it's a higher end, wood-like, but metal panel.
Yeah, and then there's some metal, yeah, I mean, it's all high-end stuff, really durable. I mean, and the nice thing is they don't have any like weird projections in the stucco with like, with foam backing, like decorative pilasters and stuff, and that gets beat to ever loving nonsense.
Yeah.
So they have very flat stucco, that's directly applied. And with the new building code, it's being stuffed full of insulation like you wouldn't believe. So it's going to be a very high performing building at the end of the day, just because of the building code. So there.
All right. I don't have any more questions. Anything, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, so we have identified a typo in condition number 2 about construction hours. I just failed to include the days. It currently reads 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It doesn't specify the day for the 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. So I would ask that we include Monday through Friday after the 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., specifically referencing construction activities outside of 150 feet from existing residential uses.
I didn't hear the rest of that. Could you repeat that, please?
We don't generally engage in a back and forth.
Oh,
with
I'm
the
sorry.
public. I apologize. We kind of would get out of hand if we.
150 feet is all I heard.
This condition is included in the item packet that has been posted for public availability. But yeah, that's the only change to the resolution.
That was condition 2.
Condition number 2.
Okay. So I have no more questions. I really like the project. I just want to remind members of the public, the Planning Commission already reviewed the map, reviewed the final map for the project, the conditional use permit for the small lot subdivision. So the item before me today is the design, the architecture, the landscaping, all the finishing touches. So the item before me today is the architecture. And as was shown today, the applicant team made a huge effort with consulting with the community, the design review board, and staff with refining their project and making a really exemplary project. I really appreciate how you've preserved the oak trees, the mature oak trees, which are really special to our area. I disagree that you use a lot of gray. I appreciate the color palette using, I haven't seen a lot of hunter green and the blue, and so I appreciate the use of color, the use of glass and glazing along the street frontage. The class 1 bike trail is a huge amenity along Gurnville Road, which is, as board member Weigel stated, the highway, right? I also like all the amenities with the children play area. It shows that you put a lot of thought and effort into the project and all the phases, all 3 phases. So with that, I'll be approving the project with Connor's amendment to condition number 2. But even though you mentioned you would screen the roof, the HVAC systems, I will just add that as a condition so that you'll just screen those either on the roof, you'll just screen the HVAC system.
That shouldn't be an issue.
So just make sure that they're screened. So with those 2 added conditions, I'll be approving, I don't know the file number.
PRJ 24005.
So the Lance Drive,
Let's drive.
Lance Drive, PRJ 24-005. I'll be approving Lance Drive housing development located at 0, 1601, 1680, 1696, and 1705 Lance Drive. That's file number PRJ 24-005. Please note this action is final unless an appeal is filed with the city clerk's office within 10 calendar days of today's decision pursuant to zoning code section 20-62.030. And for this item, the date is Friday, December 13th, 2024. There's no other item space. That concludes our business for this meeting. This meeting is adjourned.